Commander Vextal stood on the bridge of his warship, looking at the blue planet on his screen. Earth looked so small and peaceful from space. His 3 eyes studied the readings from his sensors. The humans living on this world had barely learned to travel between stars. Their technology was old and weak compared to his mighty fleet. "Sir, we have reached the target system," reported his communications officer. The alien's voice was calm and confident. They had done this many times before. 4 to 7 worlds had already surrendered to the galactic hegemony using these same methods. Vextal clicked his sharp teeth together in satisfaction. This would be easy. The humans had no real weapons, no strong shields, and no organized military that could match even one of his ships. His fleet of 300 vessels carried enough firepower to turn the entire planet into burning rock. "Send them the standard message," Vextal ordered. "Give them 72 hours to surrender completely or we will destroy their cities from orbit." The message was transmitted in multiple languages that humans could understand. It was simple and direct. Submit to hegemony rule and become slaves, or die. Most primitive species chose slavery. It was better than extinction. Far below on Earth's surface, in a room deep underground, 12 humans sat around a metal table. The walls were thick concrete, but the real protection came from technology that was carefully hidden. Director Kim Hyun, a quiet man in his 50s, listened to the alien message play through speakers. The translation was clear. The aliens wanted Earth to surrender in 3 days or face complete destruction. They offered no negotiation, no middle ground. "Submit or die. They want us to become their slaves," said Park Jin, the oldest person in the room. His gray hair and wrinkled face showed his many years, but his mind was still sharp. He had lived through the old times, when humanity had been different. Lee So-young, the youngest council member at 30 years old, looked around the table at her colleagues. Each person in this room carried terrible knowledge about what humanity really was. What they had been before they chose to hide their true nature. "We all know what happened the last time someone threatened Earth like this," she said quietly. "Our ancestors decided after the last war that we would never again show the galaxy what we are capable of." Kim Hyun nodded slowly. He touched a communication device that would send their response to the alien fleet. The message he transmitted was short and simple. Just one word in multiple galactic languages: "No." The response traveled up to the hegemony fleet in seconds. Commander Vextal waited for the usual reaction. Most primitive species would send long messages begging for mercy or trying to negotiate. Some would make threats they could not back up. A few would simply go silent in terror. But Earth's response was different. One word, clearly spoken, and then nothing. Complete silence. "Sir," reported the sensor operator, "we are detecting no military activity on the planet's surface. No weapons powering up, no shields activating, no ships launching. They appear to have stopped." Vextal was puzzled but pleased. Fear has paralyzed them. They know they cannot fight us, so they have given up hope. Begin preparations for orbital bombardment. In 72 hours, we will show them the cost of refusing the hegemony. But deep beneath Earth's surface, something very different was happening. In facilities that had been built centuries ago and then carefully hidden, ancient systems began to wake up. Lights that had been dark for 300 years slowly began to glow. Choi Minute-ho sat at a control station in one of these deep facilities. The technology around him looked strange, like it bent the light in impossible ways. Symbols appeared on his screens that seemed to hurt the eyes if stared at too long. These were the machines that humanity's ancestors had built during their darkest period, before they learned wisdom. "Director Kim," he called through his communicator, "the deep systems are responding to the threat. The sleeper protocols are beginning to activate." In facilities hidden across Earth and scattered throughout human space, more systems came online. What appeared on the surface to be simple farms, small towns, and research stations were actually something much more dangerous. Humanity had been preparing for this day for centuries, hoping it would never come. Yang Hojun stood in what looked like an abandoned subway tunnel beneath Seoul. But the walls were lined with technology that made reality itself bend around its edges. His instruments showed that 17 separate installations in the city were coming online, each one containing weapons that could manipulate time and space themselves. "Seoul stations reporting ready status," he transmitted to the command center. "All temporal displacement systems are standing by." Similar reports came from every major city on Earth and from human colonies throughout their small section of space. Technology that most species would consider impossible was quietly powering up, waiting for orders. The alien fleet above continued their bombardment preparations, completely unaware that they were about to face an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their senses showed only a quiet, primitive world with no significant military activity. Commander Vextal studied the peaceful planet below and felt confident in his victory. In less than 3 days, Earth would join the long list of worlds that had submitted to hegemony rule. The humans would learn to serve their new masters, and life would continue as it always had. But in the deep places beneath Earth's surface, Kim Hyun looked at status displays showing systems that had slept for 3 centuries. His expression was sad but determined. "May the universe forgive us for what we are about to remember," he whispered to himself. The countdown had begun. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn why humanity had chosen to hide what they truly were. 71 hours had passed since the alien ultimatum. Commander Vextal stood on his bridge, watching the peaceful blue world below. His fleet was now in perfect position for the bombardment. 300 warships aimed their most powerful weapons at Earth's major cities. "Begin the attack," Vextal ordered. "Target their largest population centers first. Show them the price of defying the hegemony." Massive energy beams shot down from his ships toward Earth's surface. Each beam carried enough power to level an entire city. The weapons that had destroyed 4 to 7 worlds before were now focused on humanity's home. But something impossible happened. The energy beams simply vanished. What? Vextal stared at his tactical display in confusion. Where did our weapons fire go? His sensor operator checked the readings 3 times before speaking. "Sir, the energy, it's gone. Not blocked, not reflected. It just disappeared completely." Vextal's confidence began to crack. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen defensive technology that could make energy simply cease to exist. Deep beneath Seoul, Yang Hojun stood in the hidden facility that looked like an old subway tunnel. The strange technology on the walls was now fully active, bending light and space around itself. His instruments showed that all 17 installations in the city were working perfectly. "Earth Command, this is Seoul Deep Sight," he reported calmly. "All temporal displacement systems are operating at full capacity. Any energy directed at the city is being redirected to empty space approximately 30,000 years in the past." The alien bombardment continued, but every shot vanished the moment it touched Earth's atmosphere. The energy beams were being sent backward through time to before Earth even existed. They exploded harmlessly in the void of ancient space. Similar reports came from installations around the globe. Song Mina, stationed beneath what appeared to be a simple farming community in the American plains, monitored her own set of impossible machines. "London base, this is Prairie Station," she transmitted. "All dimensional anchors are secure and holding steady. Reality distortion fields are operating at maximum efficiency. The enemy weapons are being redirected to parallel dimensions where Earth does not exist." The alien fleet found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. Their most powerful weapons fired at solid targets, but the energy emerged somewhere else entirely, often striking their own ships. Commander Vextal watched in growing horror as his own weapons began hitting his fleet. "How is this possible? Our targeting systems are perfect." The answer came in the form of a transmission from Earth's surface. It was the first communication the planet had sent since their simple refusal. The voice that spoke was calm and clear, using perfect hegemony language. "This is Director Kim Hyun of Earth Defense Command. You have one chance to leave this system peacefully. Withdraw now, and you may report to your leaders that this world was unsuitable for conquest. Stay, and learn why we chose to hide our true nature for so long." Vextal's pride would not allow him to retreat in face of primitive threats. "Continue the bombardment. Focus all fire on their largest cities. No primitive world can stand against the might of the hegemony." That was when Earth's true defenses began to show themselves. Across the planet's surface, buildings and structures that had appeared normal for centuries started to change. What looked like shopping centers opened to reveal massive weapon systems. Grain storage facilities transformed into defensive installations that existed in multiple dimensions at once. In a facility hidden beneath what appeared to be a children's hospital, Zhang Yuai watched her control screens with steady hands. The readings showed weapon systems coming online that could erase matter from existence itself. "Earth Command, this is Medical District Installation," she reported. "The erasers are fully operational and ready for deployment. Do we have authorization to proceed?" Director Kim Hyun's voice carried across all human installations. "Not yet. We show them what real deterrence looks like first. Perhaps they will choose to be wise." But even as he spoke, Kim Hyun knew they had passed the point of no return. 3 centuries ago, humanity had learned that once their restraints began to fall away, it became almost impossible to stop the process. The alien fleet above Earth found themselves fighting an enemy that didn't follow the same rules as the rest of the universe. Their shots missed targets that should have been impossible to miss. Their sensors showed enemy positions that couldn't exist in normal space. And slowly, one by one, their ships began to disappear. The first vessel to vanish completely was a destroyer on the fleet's outer edge. One moment it was there, sending status reports and firing its weapons. The next moment, there was nothing. No explosion, no debris, no radiation signature. The ship and its crew of 800 simply stopped existing. "Sir," the communications officer called out in panic. "The destroyer's sharp blade is gone. Not destroyed, gone. Our sensors show that section of space as completely empty." More ships began to vanish. Each disappearance was silent and complete. The vessels didn't explode or break apart. They were simply edited out of reality as if they had never been built. Vextal realized with growing terror that they weren't fighting a primitive species with hidden weapons. They were facing something that treated the fundamental laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. In installations across human space, the true scope of humanity's deception became clear. Every human colony, every research station, every seemingly innocent outpost began to reveal its real purpose. They weren't expansion efforts by a young species learning to travel between stars. They were strategic weapons platforms positioned over centuries of careful planning. On Europa, disguised as a simple ice mining operation, Yoon Sujin monitored weapons that existed partially outside normal space and time. "Earth Command, this is Europa Deep Strike. We have targeting locks on all enemy vessels and can commence full system sterilization. Awaiting final authorization." The pattern was the same throughout human territory. Humanity hadn't been expanding slowly because of primitive technology. They had been carefully placing strategic assets across hundreds of star systems, preparing for the day when someone would force them to remember what they truly were. Director Kim Hyun's voice carried to every human installation simultaneously. "All stations, you are cleared for Phase 3 operations. Show them what we have chosen to restrain all these years." The last of humanity's self-imposed limitations began to fall away like chains breaking under enormous pressure. The galaxy was about to learn why an ancient and powerful species might choose to appear weak and primitive. Above Earth, Commander Vextal watched his mighty fleet die ship by ship, and finally understood that he had made a terrible mistake. The alien battle cruiser Dominant Fist had been the most powerful ship in the Hegemony fleet. Its thick metal hull could survive hits from the strongest weapons. 12,000 alien warriors lived inside its massive frame. The ship was so large it could destroy entire moons. It took humanity exactly 14 seconds to make it disappear forever. Commander Vextal watched from his flagship as the enormous vessel simply stopped being there. The ship didn't explode. There was no fire, no broken pieces floating in space. One moment the Dominant Fist was firing its weapons at Earth. The next moment, that section of space was completely empty. Even the light that had been bouncing off the ship's hull was gone. It was as if the massive warship had never existed at all. "Sir," his communications officer said, his voice shaking with fear, "we're getting a transmission from the planet's surface. But, it's coming from inside our ship." Without anyone touching the controls, a holographic image appeared in the middle of the bridge. A human face looked directly at Commander Vextal. The man appeared to be middle-aged and completely calm. His expression showed no anger, no fear, only a terrible certainty about what was going to happen. "I am Director Kim Hyun," the human said. "I am speaking to you through quantum communication devices that were placed on your ships 3 days ago. Your security never detected our people boarding your vessels because we exist in more dimensions than you can see or understand. This is your final warning." Vextal's sharp teeth clicked together in rage and confusion. "Impossible. Our security systems are perfect. Nothing could get past them. Your security was designed to stop threats that exist only in normal three-dimensional space," Kim Hyun replied calmly. "We stopped limiting ourselves to 3 dimensions long ago." On Earth's surface, the truth about humanity's restraint became visible as hidden installations across the planet revealed their real nature. In the frozen wastelands of Siberia, what satellite pictures showed as empty forest was actually a facility where Kang Do-hyun controlled weapons that could change the basic rules of physics in small areas of space. "Moscow Command, this is Siberian Deep Sight," Kang Do-hyun reported to his superiors. "Reality modification systems are stable and ready. We can begin localized physics alteration on your command." Similar reports came from installations hidden beneath every major city on Earth. They had been disguised as subway systems, university buildings, shopping centers, and hospitals. Each one contained technology that most alien species would consider impossible. Lee Ha-won worked from beneath what looked like a small fishing village on the Korean coast. Her systems could speed up time around enemy ships until their crews died of old age in just a few seconds. Seoul Central, this is Coastal Station 7, she reported. Temporal acceleration systems are online and ready. We can age their entire fleet to dust in approximately 43 minutes. But the most frightening truth came from what the aliens had thought were simple space stations and mining platforms scattered throughout the solar system. These innocent-looking structures were actually parts of a massive weapon network that reached from Mercury to Pluto. Park Tae-jun operated from what appeared to be a basic communications satellite orbiting Earth. In reality, he controlled a system that had taken complete control over space and time within the solar system. All stations, this is SolarNet Command, Park Tae-jun announced. The web is complete. We have total control over space-time from the sun to the outer planets. No enemy vessel can leave this system without our permission. The alien fleet discovered they were trapped not by energy barriers or force fields, but by something much more fundamental. Humanity had taken control of the fabric of space itself within their solar system. Ships that tried to retreat found their engines working perfectly, but somehow they moved no farther away from Earth. When they attempted to jump to faster-than-light travel, they found that the jump points had been moved to different locations entirely. Commander Vextal realized with growing horror that they weren't fighting a young species with some hidden weapons. They were fighting something that had learned to treat the basic laws of reality as rules that could be changed at will. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, his voice filled with terror, "we're detecting massive power signatures from their outer colonies. Those mining operations we ignored, they're actually weapons platforms. Each one has enough power to destroy entire star systems." On Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, what looked like a simple ice mining facility was actually much more dangerous. Yoon Sujin monitored weapons that existed partially outside normal space and time, making them impossible to defend against. "Earth Command, this is Europa Deep Strike," she reported. "We have targeting locks on all enemy vessels in the system. We can commence complete system sterilization and are awaiting your orders." The same pattern repeated throughout human space. Every human colony, every research outpost, every seemingly innocent installation was revealing capabilities that made the alien weapons look like children's toys. Humanity hadn't been expanding slowly because they were primitive. They had been carefully positioning strategic weapons across hundreds of star systems over many centuries. The aliens began to understand that they hadn't discovered a young species stumbling into space. They had found the survivors of ancient wars so terrible that the victors had chosen to hide their own power from the universe. Director Kim Hyun's voice carried across every human installation at the same time. "All stations, you are cleared for Phase 3 operations. Show them what we have chosen to keep hidden." The final barriers that humanity had placed on themselves began to fall away. For 300 years, they had chosen to appear weak and primitive. They had chosen to limit their expansion and hide their true capabilities. Now, forced to defend themselves, those choices were being abandoned one by one. Commander Vextal watched his ships disappear with mechanical precision. Each vessel was not destroyed but completely erased from existence. No explosions, no debris, no survivors. His mighty fleet was being systematically removed from reality as if it had never been built. He finally understood that he had made the greatest mistake in galactic history. He had forced a sleeping giant to wake up. The complete destruction of the Hegemony fleet began at exactly 0347 hours, Earth time. It would be remembered in human records as the most precise military operation in the history of the galaxy. It was also the most terrifying 13 minutes that any space-traveling civilization had ever witnessed. Commander Vextal watched his ships die one by one with cold, mechanical efficiency. Each vessel didn't simply explode or lose power like in normal space battles. Instead, they were taken apart at the smallest level, broken down molecule by molecule. The alien crews had just a few seconds of confusion before they stopped existing completely. There were no pieces of wreckage floating in space, no final radio calls for help, no survivors at all. "They aren't just killing us," Vextal whispered to his communications officer. "They are erasing us from reality itself." On Earth's surface, the coordination between all the hidden installations showed the true scope of what humanity had been hiding. What appeared to be a species that could barely travel between planets was revealing itself as something that had been planning this exact moment for hundreds of years. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert, disguised as a simple solar power collection facility, Nam Jihai monitored quantum tracking systems that had been watching every alien movement since they first entered the solar system. Her computers held complete information about every enemy ship, every weapon system, and most importantly, exactly where they had come from. Earth Command, we have complete tactical data on all enemy vessels, including the exact coordinates of their home bases, she reported. Beginning reverse trace operations now. This was when the true horror of humanity's response became clear to the galaxy. The humans weren't satisfied with simply defending their world from the invasion. Using quantum connections left behind by the alien communication systems, human forces began tracking the signals back to where they originated. They were going to strike back at every world that had sent ships to attack Earth. Shin Wujin operated from what looked like a simple research station orbiting the planet Saturn. In reality, he controlled humanity's most frightening capability, the ability to attack targets instantly across distances of many light-years. Earth Command, we have established quantum tunnels to all enemy home bases, he reported. Strike packages are prepared and ready for simultaneous deployment across the galaxy. Across the vast reaches of space, hegemony worlds that had sent warships to conquer Earth suddenly found themselves facing impossible attacks. Military bases simply stopped existing. Weapons factories found that their atomic structure had been rearranged into harmless materials. Government buildings discovered that the space they occupied had been temporarily removed from normal reality. The Hegemony High Command was monitoring the battle from their fortress world of Kerex Prime, far from Earth. They watched in growing panic as their entire fleet disappeared from their screens. Emergency meetings were called. Desperate messages were sent to other powerful civilizations throughout the galaxy, begging for help. This cannot be possible, declared Supreme Commander Zarkef to his assembled war council. No species develops this level of technology without our intelligence networks detecting it. We have spies and sensors throughout the entire galaxy. The answer came in the form of a human transmission that somehow reached Kerex Prime despite all their communication barriers and quantum encryption. Director Kim Hyun's image appeared directly in their most secure meeting room as if he were standing there in person. Your intelligence networks found exactly what we wanted them to find, Kim Hyun said in his calm, steady voice. You discovered a young species struggling with primitive technology because that is what we needed you to believe. The truth is quite different. Lee Minute-ji was monitoring the transmission from her hidden station beneath what appeared to be a small farming town in Montana. She made final adjustments to the quantum projection system that allowed Kim Hyun to appear anywhere in the galaxy. Director, we now have complete access to all hegemony communication networks, she reported. They cannot hide from us anywhere in known space. The full scope of humanity's deception became clear as Kim Hyun continued speaking to the terrified alien leadership. We are not a young species just learning to travel between stars. We are not primitive. We are survivors of wars so terrible and destructive that we chose to bind our own abilities and hide what we had become. Your attack on our world has forced us to remember what we truly are. On the hegemony capital world of Kerex Prime, the alien leadership watched helplessly as their orbital defense platforms began to fail. The failures weren't caused by sabotage or direct attack, but by fundamental changes to the physical laws that govern how their weapons operated. Bae Sujin worked from a facility that officially did not exist, hidden deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. She made final calculations for humanity's most absolute response to the alien threat. Earth Command, we have identified and located all hegemony leadership, military commanders, and strategic installations across their 47 conquered worlds, she reported. Precision elimination can begin immediately upon your authorization. The end of the hegemony came not through massive explosions or huge space battles, but through surgical precision that left civilian populations completely unharmed while removing every trace of the governmental and military structures that had threatened Earth. Across the galaxy, the hegemony simply stopped existing as a political power. Its leadership and armed forces were edited out of reality with the same methodical efficiency that had eliminated their invasion fleet. Supreme Commander Zarketh managed to send one final transmission before his existence ended. The message was recorded by human monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. What are you? Kim Hyun's response was broadcast to every remaining alien civilization in known space. We are what you forced us to remember. We chose restraint. We chose to appear weak and primitive. We chose to limit our own power. Remember this choice when you consider threatening others. In exactly 13 minutes, humanity had demonstrated that the most dangerous species in the galaxy was not the one that appeared strongest, but the one powerful enough to choose its own limitations. The systematic elimination was complete. No hegemony vessel survived. No hegemony commander lived to tell others about their defeat. The galaxy would never forget the lesson. Some species choose to appear weak not because they are weak, but because everyone is safer that way. 3 days after the last hegemony warship had been erased from existence, the entire galaxy held its breath in fearful silence. Emergency meetings were called on every major world. Intelligence networks that had operated successfully for thousands of years found themselves trying to understand an enemy they had completely misunderstood for centuries. On Zirion Prime, home to the powerful Galactic Trade Confederation, Prime Minister Veldar called an unprecedented gathering of all major civilizations. Representatives from 43 different alien species came together in the Great Assembly Hall, each bringing intelligence reports that told the same terrifying story. They made the entire hegemony disappear, reported Intelligence Director Kexnal to the assembled delegates. Not destroyed in battle, completely erased from history. 4 to 7 worlds that had been part of the hegemony empire for over 2,000 years now show no signs of ever having had a government or military structure. The civilian populations are alive and unharmed, but it is as if their entire power structure was surgically removed from existence. What troubled the galactic powers most was not just the incredible display of force, but the perfect precision with which it had been applied. Ordinary people on hegemony worlds continued their daily lives completely unaware that their government had ever existed. Schools, hospitals, and businesses operated normally. Only the military bases and government buildings were gone, along with every person who had worked in them. On Earth, the careful process of returning humanity's weapons to their hidden state had begun. In facilities across the planet and throughout human space, the terrible capabilities that had been unleashed were being methodically returned to dormancy, like putting a sleeping giant back to rest. Director Kim Hyun stood in the same underground bunker where this had all started, watching as status indicators slowly dimmed back to their previous inactive state. Around him, the other members of Earth's secret leadership prepared to return humanity to the limitations they had chosen centuries ago. Park Jin, Kim Hyun said to the elderly strategist, "How much longer until all systems return to baseline status?" Park Jin looked at his control displays carefully. Approximately 72 hours for complete restraint re-engagement. The same amount of time the aliens gave us to surrender. The irony was not lost on any of them. The hegemony had given Earth 3 days to submit or face destruction. Now humanity was giving themselves the same 3 days to hide their true nature once again. Across human space, the shutdown process was being carefully managed by the same people who had awakened these systems. Yang Ho-jun, in the sole installation that looked like an abandoned subway tunnel, supervised the deactivation of temporal displacement systems that could send enemy attacks backward through time. All quantum gates returning to standby mode, he reported. Reality anchors are holding steady as we power down. We will be back to apparent primitive status within the prescribed time frame. Similar reports came from every hidden installation across Earth and human colonies. Song Mina in the American plains, Kang Do-hyun in the Siberian wilderness, Lee Ha-won at the Korean coastal facility, all of them methodically returning humanity's impossible weapons to their sleeping state. But the galaxy had seen the truth, and the galaxy now remembered. Emergency diplomatic channels buzzed with frantic activity as civilizations tried to understand what they were really dealing with. The humans had appeared to be a young, primitive species barely capable of traveling between nearby stars. Now everyone knew this had been a carefully maintained illusion. The final answer came in the form of one last transmission from Earth, broadcast on all known frequencies to every intelligent species in the galaxy. The message was simple and direct, delivered in Director Kim Hyun's calm, measured voice that had become known throughout space. To all civilizations of the galaxy, we are humanity. For 3 centuries, we have chosen to appear primitive and weak. We have chosen to limit our expansion into space. We have chosen to restrain our true capabilities and hide what we are really capable of doing. This choice was made after we learned the terrible cost of unrestricted power during our ancient wars. The galactic hegemony forced us to demonstrate why we made this choice. We hope this lesson will not need to be repeated. We will now return to our chosen limitations. We strongly suggest that you choose your own limitations wisely. The transmission continued with a set of coordinates, the exact same location where Earth had first gone silent when refusing the hegemony's ultimatum 3 days earlier. Then came a final line that would be remembered by every civilization in the galaxy: we choose our restraints. We recommend you choose yours. Within 1 week of that final message, Earth's electromagnetic signature had returned to its previous pattern. To any new observer, humanity would appear to be exactly what they had seen before, a young species struggling with basic interstellar technology, barely able to maintain a few small colonies in nearby star systems. Their cities looked primitive from space. Their technology seemed outdated and inefficient. Their military appeared weak and disorganized. Every sensor reading, every intelligence report, every observation would suggest that humans were nothing more than another minor species at the edge of galactic civilization. But now the galaxy knew the truth that would never be forgotten. The most dangerous civilizations were not those that appeared most powerful and threatening. The truly dangerous ones were those powerful enough to choose their own limitations, strong enough to appear weak by choice, and disciplined enough to maintain that illusion for centuries. In secret archives across the galaxy, the event was recorded with various names. Some called it the Day of Silence. Others named it the Human Revelation. Military historians referred to it as the Great Restraint. But among the diplomatic circles of every major power, it became known by a much simpler phrase: the day the galaxy learned that some species choose to appear weak not because they are weak, but because everyone is safer when they do. Earth returned to its quiet existence at the outer edge of galactic civilization. Its people went about their normal lives as if they were ordinary inhabitants of an ordinary world. Children went to school, adults worked at regular jobs, and families lived peaceful lives under blue skies. But every alien observation post, every intelligence network, every military command in the galaxy now watched that small blue world with new understanding and careful respect. Humanity had chosen restraint over dominance. They had chosen to bind their own incredible power. They had chosen to appear less threatening than they actually were. The galaxy sincerely hoped they would never be forced to choose otherwise again.